what to talk about is you've heard how to engage people, then how to bring them into your court, and what Michael's going to be talking about is how to build a system so that now you can do something with your relationships and hopefully make some money. So, Michael.
I know, I got dressed up, right? See if I can get turned on here. I know we're kind of running late in the afternoon. We've been here for a couple hours, so I know we just had a break, but could you humor me for a second and just kind of stand up for a second? Right? Because I find that people will rise and fall to the expectations that are put in front of them. And this happens a lot online as well as people that you meet. Now, I tend to try and give the best presentation ever, but it really helps out if I have a really big audience clapping and cheering for me at the beginning. Alright, I got the standing ovation done at the beginning, so we can jump into some other things. I appreciate that. I really do. So we're going to talk about conversion hacking a little bit. Now, just out of curiosity, I see a lot of familiar faces. How many people know me or have seen me speak before? Okay, so that's about half the room. I'm kind of out of breath a little bit. I should get back in the gym. Here's the other part, though. For those of you who don't know me, I've been doing internet marketing since about 2000. Kind of fell into it. I was one of those people that had a commission-only sales job, and the dot-com stuff was going on, and people said, the company that I was working for said, anybody want to learn how to generate leads online? That was my immediate response. My follow-up question was, can I keep all the leads? Right? I'm a commission-only salesperson. They said yes. I got really good at it. I started making them a lot of money, so I moved on to another company. Did the same thing all over again. After about the third company I did this with, I sat down and I said, I'm making these guys a lot of money. Let me figure out roughly how much I'm making these guys. Over a 4-year period, the companies that I worked for, I generated enough leads, in my estimation, to sell about $100 million in products. Right? That's when I decided to start a company. I said, I'm getting a little better at this. Let me go out and start a company doing this. So I did. I built that company. I sold it a couple of years ago. Had an internet marketing company, full service. I did a lot of stuff with small business. I was working for bigger companies at the time, which is why I was able to sell such high volumes of stuff. But I realized the people that needed my help the most were the ones down on Main Street, right? The little business shops on Main Street that were the one-man show. So how many people here own a business and you're the only employee? Okay, that's the majority of the room here, right? How many have one full-time employee or more? Okay, so there's a very small percentage of those people. So what I found on the conversion side is that the people that have the one-man show have a big, huge advantage over the bigger corporations. Okay? And I'm going to get into kind of what I do. But it all starts out with knowing your customer. You have to know your customer inside and out better than they know themselves. And the customers that I want you to kind of focus on, some of them are potential customers and some of them are paying customers. You want to focus on first the people that are your most recent customers, the people that, like in the last month, have given you money. Okay? Then you want to focus on your current customer base, but those are outside that 1 month window. Okay? And then the last is you want to focus on the qualified no's. The people that are qualified that should be your customer but told you no for whatever reason. You want to keep these 3 people in mind as we go through this exercise. Okay? Now we're gonna focus on your current customer because these are going to be the ones that are like hot off the presses type of deal. And we're going to figure out how we can actually make more money by talking to them. This is an odd concept when I start talking about this with internet marketing, is I want you to actually speak with your customer. Okay? I'll let that sink in for just a second. All right. So here we go. One easy way to do this is through surveys. All right? With surveys, let's break this down in kind of different phases and what you're trying to accomplish throughout this. All right? So the first part you're looking at, you see this guy walking, is the objective here is to figure out how they actually found you. How did they come online and find you or meet you in person or whatever it is. The question you would want to ask would be something similar to, where exactly did you find us or find out about us? I know it's really difficult, right? Here's the thing that you want to do. Have you ever seen those drop-down menus that ask a similar question that says, oh, Google, or you found us on Facebook, or you found us on some newspaper somewhere, right? Don't ever do that. Those answers that they give you here will really surprise you. You might find by doing this, instead of a word of mouth, which a lot of times is one of those drop-down things, they have one guy named Dave, that's sending you the majority of your business, right? Guess where you need to focus more of your business on? Dave, right? Otherwise, it gets lost in the word of mouth route. So that's the first thing you want to do, is find out how they actually came to be your customer and gave you money. The second part about this objective is to kind of find out what appeals to them. You're getting to know your customer a little better. Okay, getting inside the head of your customer. You want to find out what appeals to them. So you ask them things like, what persuaded you to purchase from us, right? Or you say, please list the top 3 reasons that you bought from us, right? That you consider buying from us. So once again, you're getting inside the head and finding out what actually appeals to them. This is what I find that's amazing. People that have been in business for 10 or 20 years, that have been, they started the business by themselves or they're doing it for a long time. I think they know their customers. These answers always surprise me. When I have them do this exercise and run through and say, okay, find out actually what are the reasons that they bought from you. They're thinking it's all the stuff that they had in their advertising, or because they won all these awards, or because they're the best of the best, because they tell everybody that. And in a lot of cases it's, well, because this person over here recommended you, or you were the closest guy to me, or, I saw your direct mail piece sitting on the floor that was accidentally brushed underneath the table, right? And that's what I needed at the time. Oh, wow, okay. That's some insightful stuff, right? So you never know what these answers are going to be, but you want to be able to do this. So the next part, of course, comes to the money. Understanding how you are positioned in your customer's mind against the competition, okay, your competitors. So you want to ask them questions like, which other options did you consider before choosing, whatever your product name or business name, you just kind of insert that in there. So you'll find out that a lot of times the people that you think are your competition aren't anywhere on the list. Okay, so you want to be very cognizant of that and kind of dive deep into there and find out who they are. The other thing you can look at is, out of all the competitors out there, offline, online, doesn't really matter. How did you come about choosing us, right? So phrase it however is going to fit your business the best, but you need to ask those questions. Moving right along to the fourth one, I see some people typing. You want me to back up there for a second? Is that good for you? Right? So if you notice that there's a progression there that we're going through, right? So we're trying to get inside the mind of our customer to know them better than they know themselves, right? We want to kind of build out a persona of the person that buys from us. Now, are you guys familiar with a buyer persona? Have you ever heard that term before? Yes? Okay. So essentially it is, I want, let's just take me for example, right? So I want this guy that's 6'2", has a couple kids, wears a suit all the time, but loves watches, and so he has 20 watches, but never wears one. Right? So it could be something that ridiculous, or it could be something that's a lot more specific as far as like their job, the amount of money that they make, where they live, the zip code that they live in, right? What car that they drive, anything that you know about the customer. Anyway, on to the next one. So this next objective, you want to understand kind of, and this is the toughest question probably to ask, is you want to find out what the reservations are. How come they're not buying from you? A lot of people stop right here. They never want to find this out. But it's the most insightful information you will ever find about your business, right? If you start to ask the people that bought from you, you know, what's the one thing that nearly stopped you from doing it? You know you need to do a better job doing that. Do I need to bring this up a bit more? Okay. Is that better? Okay. So, or of course you can ask on here, what's the biggest fear or what's your concern about using us, right? Because here's the thing what I found when I was selling all the time, face to face, is that if you could find out what they were afraid of doing business, and you could objectively overcome that and pacify that, not only would they stay a customer, they would start referring you more customers. Okay? Because then you know that out of everything that's going on, no matter what, if you have your list of hot buttons on what to talk about, right? It doesn't matter. They're concerned with this one thing over here. And as long as you hit that one point, then you're going to be okay. So here's some action steps for you when it comes to surveys. And I listed a couple of tools over here as well. All right? So this is going to take you off guard a little bit, but I challenge you to spend at least an hour a day on the phone with people that have paid you money. Okay? Going through these 4 questions with them. Make it a habit to anybody who gives you any type of exchange of monetary value, or even if the ones that are sitting down for a free consultation, run through these questions with them and ask them, right? And then start doing this with your older customers, and then start doing this with also the people that are telling you no. Yes, ma'am.
I understand when you have a smaller business, it makes it easier to get in touch with them.
Mm-hmm.
I do marketing for a larger business that has about 400 customers. Where would you start?
So if you're the marketing person that's responsible for the generating leads and stuff, you want to start talking to their customer base, okay? If that's what you're doing. Now, if you're a consultant where you work with multiple companies, then you want to start talking to the people that actually are the decision makers.
Right, but where do you start if you have a database of 400 companies?
Let's start with the newest clients, the newest ones.
If you have a question, please raise your hands so that we can record you.
Sorry.
Okay.
And I'll repeat this question because it's probably relevant to a lot of people. She was talking about if you have a large customer base, where do you actually start with this? Start with the most recent people, okay? If somebody bought from you today, start with them. If somebody bought with you last week, start with them. And then move back from there, okay? Because since they just gave you money, it's going to be fresh on their mind, the reasons why that you are going to need to pay attention to. All right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So the next thing you want to do is set up some type of survey in an autoresponder system. So how many people here have some type of autoresponder like Aweber, iContact, customer contact, constant contact, whatever it is? If you don't, I highly recommend you get it. Okay? Just do a search for autoresponders online, and you'll be able to find a tool that fits your needs. Okay? There's plenty of them out there. There's a lot of really good ones. So what that does is it will send out an email for you at a previous disclosed time. So say somebody joins your buyers list, somebody just bought a product, you put them into your database, a week later they get a survey from you. That you don't even have to think about it. They just review those surveys on a monthly basis, right? If you're in a large corporation, that's a great way to do it. So then that follow becomes automatic. The other thing that you can do is you can start setting up what I call a survey funnel to collect the data. So at different points in your sales process, you want to go ahead and try and collect different information from them to figure out kind of what their mindset is all about. And some of the tools that you can use out there, there's survey customers, and this is a good one for setting up different funnels, because you can put this on your website, so if somebody's leaving, you can put some information in there. but it allows you to do kind of a decision tree. So if you're familiar with that, what it does is say, are you looking for this or this? You'll select one of them. Or are you looking for this or this? So you'll select another one. And then it allows you to put them in and segment them. Because I'm guessing that most of you in here don't have just one identical type of customer that you sell to. Most of the time, they fit into multiple different profiles. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? In fact, that's how you're going to be able to grow your business very large, is by having multiple profiles that you deal with. But you want to start out focusing on one. Okay? So focus on one niche, focus on one type of buyer within that niche, and then build it out. And just do it one at a time. It might seem like a very daunting task up front when you're looking at this, but when you do it just one day at a time, or 1 hour at a time, it's something that takes up very, very quickly. And to give you a really good example of that, how many of you use Gmail? Right? Okay, the big majority of the room. Do you guys know about the filter settings in there and the tagging options in there? Just out of curiosity, how many people use those settings? A couple of you. Out of those that do, how many have, say, over 10 filters or tags? What about over 100? 300? 400? Okay. I do. And the reason I do is because every time somebody sends me an email and doesn't have a filter or a tag on it, I set one up. I just do it as it happens, right? So over the course of using this for several years, what happens is I have a huge filter and tag database within the Gmail system. If I had to sit down there and create this all at once, I can tell you right now, it would not get done. Okay? So you want to do this just 1 hour a day, one simple conversation at a time. Don't try and jump all at once and do this all the time, because it's not going to work. Okay? If you set aside a week and you try and do this, well, one, you'll go rogue. Two, you'll shoot yourself in the head. You don't want to do this, right? So just do little baby steps. That's going to be the best way to do this. Another tool, especially for the autoresponder side, is going to be SurveyMonkey. Probably a lot of you are familiar with SurveyMonkey. I believe they still do have a free account setting that's in there. Once you start maxing that out, to go ahead and start paying. And I think it's less than $20 a month to do something like that. But the information that you get out of there is so invaluable. The other last one, I'm sure everybody has, is a phone, right? So, I know this is kind of funny when it comes to the internet marketing, because how many times have you tried to call somebody that's selling something online? Besides getting some type of weird call triangle, like press 1 for this, press 2 for that, you hardly ever get to actually speak to a person. So I can guarantee you this: if you start reaching out and say to your customer base and be like, yes, this is me, I'm the owner of the company, and I'm just trying to find out some additional information. I was wondering if you could help me out. Right? Oh, great. The owner of the company is calling a customer? How rare is that? It doesn't happen. On the internet marketing side, it never happens. Okay? And the companies that do very, very well. So here's what's going to happen when you go through this sequence. Right? When you start doing these things, you're going to get to know the customer better than they know themselves. Okay? You're going to know what challenges they have, what things they're concerned with, what's a driver, what words influence them to click on something, to buy something. Here's one thing that I don't think a lot of people think about, is that when it comes to the online medium, okay, it's just a different way of communication. The best way of communication is obviously face-to-face, because then you can take all these other visual cues, body language, to figure out if people are listening to you, right? And then you can sell them. And you're going to talk about all different types of things. Well, if you're trying to sell them online and you're not talking about all these different types of things, what's going to happen? They're just going to go somewhere else. Okay? So you're not going to be very effective on it. Now that you're going to get an idea of who your audience is that's buying from you, then you can start going on to the next step on being able to increase the amount of money that somebody is giving to you on a regular basis. Okay? So you guys got this part down? Yes? Let's get inside the mind of our customer. This is very, very important. All right? So let's see. All right, so the next part here, setting up your funnel. Hey, how many people have seen this? Sales funnel before, right? Oh, that's only small percentage of people. Really? Okay, all right, that's a little bit better. All right, so the sales funnel, you've heard about this for a while, right? So at the top of the sales funnel, this is depending on how wide you want to go on this, right? Is the awareness, how people find out about you. Do they even know you exist, all right? Then you kind of move down to the sales funnel into the evaluation. They're comparing you against your competition to figure out if they need to make a purchase. The time frame between that awareness and evaluation depends on your product. It could be something that happens in a matter of seconds. It could be something that happens in a matter of years. You just need to know your product life cycle. How long does it take somebody to become aware of you before they actually start comparing you because they have a need to buy your product or service? All right? And then, of course, they make that purchase decision and they move down to the bottom of the funnel. This is where most people stop. Well, guess what? For your business to make a lot of money, you need to look at it a totally different way. All right? Because your sales cycle, your funnel can look something like this. This is more of an advanced funnel. I just found this online. I don't even remember where I found it. Otherwise, I would have documented where it was, right? So on the left side, you have kind of a more complicated sales funnel. On the right side is something a little simpler. But still, what you want to do, what you want to think about. Has anybody seen this before? ZMOT? Okay. Google put something on, it's called the zero moment of truth. All right? And what they mean by that is that when somebody's doing searches online, there's a chance that they're searching more than just one person, right? But they're about to make a buying decision. That's the zero moment of truth. All right? With that, when in that instant, if you don't hit the right buttons and you don't persuade them the right way, they're going to be going on. And in fact, they found that on average, consumers check 10.4 different sources before they actually make a buying decision. Wow. Right? So the internet has become a really big warehouse, data warehouse of information that they can filter through very, very quickly. Whether they're doing a pricing comparison because they want to shop by price, or they're trying to find who's the best consultant in town or who's the best pizza place in town. It doesn't matter. On average, consumers are checking a lot of different sources. Okay? And this is just online. This doesn't include the people that they talk to. Right? Now, if you're familiar with Infusionsoft has a different way of looking at it that they've been championing for a while. They call it a customer life cycle. What you'll notice that's different about the sales funnel than this customer life cycle sits right about in the middle. You see that dollar sign? Right? That's where they convert it to the sale. Guess where most of the money is made? After that. Right? You can go find that on Infusionsoft's site, right? So this is their customer life cycle. They're attracting the leads, and this is what we've talked about already today. They attract and capture the leads. They nurture the prospects a little bit, right? So when you're nurturing those prospects and getting them to give you money, you have to be able to talk to them in a way that they understand. What better way to do that than talk to them on the phone is better. On the email is okay. Okay? Video chat is okay if they're far away. But on the phone, in person is the best. Okay? Because you can get all these different cues on what's going on. Find out the truth on what's on their mind. Because do you find that people, especially when you're giving them a survey, just kind of tell you what they want to hear? Right? Instead of really what's on their mind. So this is why you want to do this kind of in a way that you can actually get some visual cues from somebody if possible. So anyway, so what you want to start thinking about here is in your customer's head, what are they thinking about before they actually give you money? That whole process from finding out about you to comparing you to the competition to deciding that they're going to give you money versus everybody else. You need to hit and write down kind of all those questions that you think they might be asking themselves. And all those types of things need to be addressed either on your webpage or in a follow-up email. Somewhere. So these are the questions that people care about whenever they're doing this. And when Mark was talking in the beginning, he talked about would you rather go to a 5-page website or a website that has 100 pages, right, of information and questions and answers that you're looking for, right? Well, if you know your customer, chances are they don't have one question. I find it funny because if I ask a customer or if I ask the business owner to list out the 10 questions that you think the customer is going to ask you, and then I go ask the customer, list the 10 questions that actually concern you, those questions are sometimes miles apart. Not even close. It's very rare that I get 2 or 3 questions that are the same, and a lot of times price is on the business owner, but not on the customer, right? Because the customer is looking for value, not necessarily price. Depends on the business model, right? And then the next thing you got to look at is once they've actually given you money and gone through that transaction, what other things are they going to need after that, right? So if you're a retailer, you have, say you're doing clothing, right? Because clothing's simple. Somebody goes and buys a pair of pants. They're not going to walk around in their pants all day. Some people might, right? But chances are they're going to need a shirt, a pair of shoes with that, some sandals, or some socks, right? But when are they going to buy that? How quickly? Do they buy it all at once? Or do they buy it seasonally? Or do they buy it several weeks down the road? By knowing your customer, you can know their buying cycles. So you can know when to engage them again and say, hey, look, we have a sale on this. Let's go ahead and buy this. Okay? So now, hey, because you're a previous customer, I want to give you the benefit of the doubt of our fall buying. One thing that's really good about the fashion industry is they've trained their customers when to buy, right? The new fall collection comes out, they get a big influx in sales. The new summer collection comes out, another big influx in sales. Do you think that you could probably train your customers also when to buy? If you already know what they're going to be thinking about later on down the road, do you think you can start prepping them along the way by giving them quality information, by treating them like a person instead of actually a number or a statistic? Something to think about. So here's 4 steps to conversion hacking. Okay, this is going to get you more money here. I'll talk about, we've talked about a few of them all along the way already. But the first step is once you know your customer, you have to identify the funnel, the process that they're going to go through. The last thing you want to do is let the customer decide when he's going to give you money, right? What you need to do is figure out, hey, my customer needs to know these things based on the fact that I've talked to all these customers, and this is what they're looking for. And when they do, then they're ready to present and give you some money, right? And then from there, they're going to go over here and maybe engage with me on social media. Maybe they're going to download these reports. And once I know that they download these free reports or these white papers or case studies, I know their mindset tells me that they're now this point in the funnel. So they're ready to buy this other product. So I need to offer it to them. And then they're going to go through a couple other challenges because now their business is growing bigger. Right? Or maybe they have a big collection, so now it's time to donate some clothing somewhere. So they need to go and do this. This is the next logical step in the sequence. Your customer doesn't determine that sequence, you do. So lay it out, decide, this is the process that I want my customers to go through. Now, they can go through it very, very quickly, okay, or they can go through it very, very slowly. But you need to determine, hey, customer A bought this, this, and this. Customer B bought this. How come he hasn't bought these 2 things yet? Well, because he hasn't gone through this. So let me get him through this sequence, right? Whether you're doing it with direct mail, whether you're doing it with phone calls, whether you're doing it with email, you got to understand the sequence that in their mindset, what has to change, whether it's in their mindset or whether in their life, something has to change for them to move to the next level and give you more money. So it's up to you to figure that out and present them with those options, right? And then once you do that, then you have to figure out what's that conversion point. Is it going to be at the cash register? They walk in the door, they pick a product off the shelf, they walk up to you and they give you money, right? Is it going to be on an online transaction where they sign up for a webinar and after the webinar you pitch them something? Is it going to be a sales page? They come to your website, they read through your sales page or listen to your video and buy something there. You have to decide what that conversion point is going to be, and then move on to the next thing. Now that you know your customer, there's going to be certain triggers that they look for. So a trigger is nothing more than something that's going to have them take action. It could be a word, it could be a color, it could be a picture. Okay, it could be the headline changed or removed completely. You have to think about these different things that you can test. Now, I was going to go into all the technicalities on actually how you can test, but then I realized most of you probably don't know. So I'm going to give you a tool that makes it really, really easy here a little bit later on. Okay, that literally is if you can do stuff on WordPress, you can set up A/B testing with this. It's that easy to do. It's really just kind of drag and drop kind of deal. And then the last thing you want to look at is what's called a canvas. I call it the canvas because I'm looking at a picture. I'm looking at the whole picture, right? The picture's on that canvas. I want to look at everything and how it's presented, and not taking things out of context. Because taking things out of context can increase or decrease your conversions dramatically. Okay? So, and the online marketing world, they call this a treatment as well. What kind of treatment are you going to apply to it? So once you go through this process and you have a defined funnel that they're going through, you can figure out, hey, they're going to give me money on this page, or they're going to give me money on this webinar, or they're going to give me money from this email, right? And the factors within that email or web page or webinar that's going to determine whether or not they give you money or not, then you start testing those things. And of course, the big picture overall is you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. I've seen a lot of businesses that will go for the short-term gains, and they'll do something that will increase their business dramatically, but then what happens is they lose all their long-term profits because of how they positioned it going through there. A good explanation of that is imagine that you do something that's like a high-end offering, okay? And you have a service or a product that you sell for thousands of dollars, and then you turn around and sell it for hundreds of dollars or give it away for free. You just devalue your product line. So the customers that you're going to attract at that price point are not going to be the same customers that are going to spend 10 times that later on down the road. So you got to be careful when you're doing any type of couponing and things like that. If you're doing any type of coupons or discounts, a recommendation for you is that you will find out what the average price point is that somebody pays for your product or service, and that's going to be the value of a coupon or customer or the coupon or discount that you're giving at the end value. So, for example, if you sell a service that on average people pay you $150, go find one of your bigger services that you can discount to $150 and still make money, and then that's what you discount, and you do it to that average price point. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah? Yes? Maybe? I'm losing a lot of people. All right. So maybe I'll answer this question. How do you know what to test? How many in here have a website? Yes? Okay. How many people have analytics on their website, like Google Analytics maybe? Or some type of analytics tool, whether free or paid? That's the majority of you. Good. I was hoping for that. All right? So, use your analytics. You can find the pages that have been most visited by your customers. If you're using Google Analytics, on the left-hand side, they changed everything if you haven't been on there for a while. And it says it's going to be acquisitions. Right? So you're going to be looking for the acquisitions tab. Click on that, and then under there it's going to be the landing pages. When you do that, you can sort by the most visited pages. This is a website that I sold 4 or 5 years ago. That's a couple of days of traffic there, and so we're sorting by the most visited web pages, right? In that first column, that's where you see who's visited. Now, when you look at the pages that are the most visited, you should ask yourself this question: what type of action am I trying to get them to take on that page? Am I trying to generate a lead, or am I trying to generate a sale? Those would be your only two options for your web page. Should be generating a sell or generating a lead for you. Every single page on your website should have one of those two options on it. If they don't, you should add one of those on there. Okay? Most every page on your website is going to be a lead generator for you. So the question becomes, how can I change, whether it's the body copy itself, whether it's the entire treatment, the entire canvas of your web page, whether it's moving your opt-in box from the very bottom to the very top, test different things out. How can I increase the action of them either being a lead for me or buying a product from me? Okay? Focus on the most trafficked pages first. Now, if you don't have a lot of traffic on your web page or your website, then look at, go back in the analytics, and if you know how to change the dates that they look for, change it so you get all the data that you've ever collected, right? Or change it for the last year. So you get, 1,000 or 2,000 visitors on there, and you can see, hey, I have, out of those 1,000 people that have been on my website in the last year, 400 have come to this page, and then they leave my site, which is the next place to check, right? Is you want to check the pages that are the top exit pages, right? Where are people leaving your site? So they come to your site, they move around everywhere, then they leave. Well, if you can get them before they leave to either buy a product or become a lead, now you're going to start increasing your potential for money down the road. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay? So you got to think about, once again, what is a primary action that you want them to take on that page that's listed at the top of that list. Okay? Now, here's the other mistake that I see a ton of people do, right? There should only be one primary goal for the page. Only one, right? Everything else becomes secondary. In other words, if I'm trying to get them to sign up and opt into my email list on my blog, there's no reason for me to have this huge banner that takes over the page that gets them to go off my website. That's not my primary goal. My primary goal is to get them to join my email list, not buy this other offer that has nothing to do with me. There's no reason for me to have these big, huge banner ads on the side of my website if I'm trying to get them to give me their contact information so I can sell them something, right? So it just depends on, once again, what's your business goals, but your main objective needs to be clear to that user, all right? And the best way to do it, of course, is to test, right? Do A/B testing. How many of you are familiar with A/B testing? It's one thing versus the other, right? Multivariate testing is we're going to change all these different things and show different patterns, and we're going to figure out which combination of these things are going to be the best. That's really confusing. That also requires a lot of traffic. Okay, where you can get a simple A/B test and maybe have 1,000 visitors come through and get a conclusive result. You would need, for the same test, if you were doing a multivariate test, you might need 100,000 visitors to come up with conclusive results. So, A/B test versus which test won. So what I thought I'd do right now is kind of give you some scenarios that hopefully you can start implementing in your business, maybe today, if you're really ambitious, okay? Or at the very least, next week, and start testing immediately, okay? Now, how many of you have a business where you use stock images and you don't necessarily use you yourself as a person on your website, but you use somebody else's photograph on there? Okay? A few people? Okay? So here's the test. We wanted to find out, this is DHL, right? So they were able to do this big test. If I have a European white guy holding a package, or if I have an Asian guy on there, which one's going to convert better? Everything else is identical. Okay? So, here's a question for you. How many think it's the big white guy? Anybody? You need some participation here. Come on. All right. That's about a third of the room. Okay, is everybody else going Asian guy? Asian guy? Huh? That's all right. So here's the results of the test. 30% went for the Asian guy. 30% more people went for the Asian guy. Okay? So if you're driving high volumes, that's a lot of zeros.
They work hard.
Okay? But here's the other thing. And I didn't put the results on this, and I didn't put this up there. But they did the same results, and then they said, let's test gender. So they put an Asian guy versus an Asian girl. Who went with the Asian guy? Who went with the Asian girl? That's about split. There was a 15% bump in the Asian female. Okay, so ultimately the ad that won was the Asian female. Okay? So if you notice on the test, though, they wanted to do something very, very specific. They said, hey, look, I have this website. We're going to keep everything identical, but does the person that is pictured selling my product make a difference? The answer to that question is always going to be yes. So you need to decide which race or ethnicity is going to be better for selling your product. The only way you can do that is by knowing your customer. The other side is you got to figure out which gender is going to be better. Now, you got to keep this relative to your business. And what I mean by that is if we let the machine algorithm choose any kind of picture, okay, ultimately what would end up there every single time would be some scantily clad woman. And that's not what we want. So use your discretion for your business, right? Because sex sells. I'm sorry, it's the truth, right? But the thing about it is, use discretion within your business, okay? Do you need somebody in a suit, or do you need somebody that's casually dressed? You know, if you're trying to sell swimwear, some guy in a suit is not going to do it for you, right? So just keep in mind all of those things. Be very, very specific with your test. So what we learned from this is that gender and ethnicity matter selling your product. Who's going to be your product spokesmodel, right? So the next part, candidate versus family. Just in case we had any politicians here, right? Now this test is kind of famous by now because we all know who ended up winning the election. This is 2008, right? President Obama. But they started testing two different things. One was that media that was in the top there, where you see him by himself. And they actually tested different pictures and they tested different videos. And you can imagine, since he's doing like hundreds of millions of dollars in ad spend, he's getting a lot of people showing up to the site. So they were able to run these tests fairly quickly. The other thing that they wanted to test was the button, what the verbiage on the button. In this case, it said sign up. Here's another version. I'm not going to run through all the different versions of this because they have like 4 or 5 buttons and they have probably 10 different media things that they were testing on this. Okay? This one had the family, it had a different call to action at the top of the headline, and then learn more. So we have this one and this one. And who goes for the first one? Who went for the first one? Yes? 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 Okay. Who goes for this one? Okay, well, that's good. Because that's the one that ultimately won. Okay? And this data was published by Optimizely because Optimizely is the program that they use. Well, I should say it's the program. The guy that invented Optimizely was running that test. Okay? And so this is the actual test data. And you see at the top here in the center line, right? 40.6. You see that? Everybody see that? That's how much of a difference it made in the conversion. Right? In this short test, you see that they ran, 13,000 people in all these different variations. So now they have a winner, and they tested about 100,000 people, or more, 150,000 people. So now for the other millions of people that came through there, they were able to increase their opt-in rate by 40.6%. That's a big number. Okay? So, once again, going back into your mind of the people that you're trying to sell to, is it going to make a difference if there's one person trying to sell a product, or if it's a family-oriented thing? If you're put a family scenario in there. And it doesn't have to be, husband, wife, and kids. It could be just father and son, father and daughter. Does that make a difference in what you're trying to sell? Okay? If it does, it's something for you to test. So, depending on your product, again, right? This is all product centric. Knowing your customer, what's going to appeal to them more on what you're trying to sell? A person or a family? Okay? Here's one, and of course their test results are very obvious. Right? 37 signals. Probably don't know the company, but you probably have heard of Basecamp, right? Project management software. That's the 37 Signals is the company that makes Basecamp, and Highrise and a couple other things. So they're fanatical testers. Okay? They had a really, really high converting website on the left-hand side, right? Then they said, hey, let's start putting people instead of all this other text and images and everything else that we had going on. 102% increase. Holy cow. I see your head, right? You're like, holy cow, if I could get 102% increase in my conversion rate, right, that would be phenomenal. And then essentially what they did is they just doubled the amount of leads that came in. But this is also another way to think about it. They just doubled the amount of money they were making on the same number of people visiting their site. So if you could do that with your business, what would that mean for you as a business owner? Double the amount of what you're doing, right? This is why testing becomes important. This is why knowing your customer becomes so important. Because if you know your customer better than anybody else, you can create and come up with different tests like this on things that are going to appeal to them to get them to take action. You're going to be light years ahead of anybody else. Small changes in word tense. How many of you have a product that is a membership site of some sort? Or a software product of some sort? Okay? This is, you've already seen these create your account buttons. They're all over the place, right? Well, they tested create my account. In this case, they already had create my account, so they put create your account because they think, oh, I'm talking to that person, create your account, right? Guess what? Conversions dropped. 24.9%, right? You just lost a quarter of your business. Think again, how would that affect you? That's one word changing, making that much of a difference. So if you don't think that everything all together makes a difference, it's all these little things. So in fact, and one of the things that I've always loved about conversions is anytime I think I know the customer, I do a test, and sometimes it's amazing the results of the test was fun. I'm just like, no, I'm picking this one, or I'm picking this one. In fact, I didn't put this anywhere, but you should write this down. It's a website, it's called whichtest1.com, right? I believe that's the name of the URL, the website. Every single day, they put a split test up, and you get to pick which test you think won. It's a 50-50 gamble, right? You can flip a coin. And then they show you the results on what actually happened. Okay? It's all, every time I do that, I'm surprised. But it'll also give you some really, really good ideas on what you can actually go and test on your website. Because a lot of these are small changes. These are A/B tests. So they're not dramatic changes. They're changing a word here, or a color here, or a picture here. Right? They're not changing big, dramatic things. So what you got to understand is it's all these small incremental changes over time give you huge, huge results. If you're familiar with chaos theory, right, the butterfly effect, where they say, hey, look, the butterfly flapping its wings over here in South America will cause a typhoon over there in Asia, right? The small little things happen, create big changes over a long period of time. And that's essentially what's happening when you start doing these A/B tests. If you're having enough traffic come through, then you can do the A/B test more frequently. If not, maybe they're going to run for a month or two. But it doesn't matter. If you get a 25% increase in your business, and it took you 2 months to do, would you be upset about that? No. Okay. All right. What if it took you 6 months to get a 102% increase in your business? Would you be upset about that? Yeah. Okay. So start doing these. When you start stacking them up, one after another, you're going to start seeing big ones. And this is where you start seeing double and triple digit, quadruple digit growth year after year after year. How does that sound appealing to you? Yes?
On that, it's test one, can you implement test of your own on this site?
Not on that site, but on your website, you can take what was on there and see if it works on your site. So, and that actually brings up a really good point, right? When you see these tests, and when you see these tests like this, right? And they're really, some of them are really dramatic. Come on, 102%, that's pretty dramatic. Think about this for a second. If I put it on my site and don't test it, how do I know it works? I'm just blindly following what the other guy said. Was his traffic source the same as mine? Is his customer base the same as mine? We could be both selling the identical product, but coming at it from a different angle. And his test will result in something different than mine. So you have to test it. Don't take anything at face value. Test it. Use the data that's there. All right? So here's another part, the value test. If you give a free subscription to your blog or generating emails in any way, a lot of times what happens is you need to reinforce the value of your offering. Because it's free, people think it's just people are going to jump on it immediately. Well, you can get a million things for free online right now. The difference is how you present that together. So this is for a blog opt-in. Notice that what they did is they bullet pointed what they actually write about in their blog, so you know what you're going to be getting. So if you have a blog that writes about 10 million things, you're in trouble, right? I would then split it up into categories and try and get people to opt in for the categories. But if you're very, very specific, if you talk about the Sarasota business market, and then you talk about 3 things only in the Sarasota business market, then those are the 3 things that you would put on there. Okay? If you're a retailer, do you do men's, women's, children's? Do you do summer? Do you do winter? What type of clothing options do you have? Okay? What are they going to be getting discounts and coupons? Do they get, subscriber-only benefits? Then you need to make that clear. And it doesn't have to be a lot of benefits. 3 benefits are enough. And guess what you can do with those 3 benefits? Test which ones actually make more subscribers for you, right? So if you put 3 on there and your subscriber rate goes up, you take one off and put a new one on there, does your subscriber rate go up or down? Right? And you keep doing it. Test. Always be testing. Are you getting kind of a sense of what I'm talking about here? Right? You know your customer now because you spent an hour on the phone every single day finding out what makes them tick. What separates you from the competition? What things are important to them? Okay? Where they're coming from? So now you're starting to run these ads or reach out to the people that you need to bring in more customers and more leads. And now you start presenting the value to them on a consistent basis, but you have to test it. And test it. And then, once again, it's the small incremental changes that over time make very, very big results for your business. Okay? So let's recap kind of everything that I've been talking about so far. The first thing is to increase your conversions of your leads, you're going to have to know your customer. You can't assume that you know your customer. Take a phone and call them. Right? Do a survey with them. Know what's on their mind. You should know your customer better than anybody else. And if you do, there's no question on if your business is going to be successful during down times or good times. Your business is always going to be at full capacity. Because as much as you can do, you're going to know your customer so well that they're going to keep coming to you. You're going to have to turn away business or grow your business, but you get to decide that. All right? The next part is you need to define your funnel. It's not up to your customer which process they should go through to buy your product. It's up to you. Make it easy for them. Don't make them think. This is the next step. Hey, look, I want you to buy this. Come over here, pick it up, look at it, flip it around, open it up, play with it, push on the buttons. Now you've done that, great, give me some money. I just really oversimplified it for you, but you have to guide them through that process. You know that if they do this and this and this, the next logical sequence is for them to give you money, right? And if you spend the time, that hour a day, getting on the phone, getting to know your customer, then you're going to be able to know, hey, this is the next logical part of the sequence, they should give me some money. I wish I could say it's automatic, but it's not. Because there's so many variables to every person. There could be outside influences. There could be monetary influences, right? But you know the best way to do this is that they're going to go and ask me this, they're going to ask me this, they're going to do this, they're going to download this, they're going to attend this webinar, then they're going to give me $30,000. That's great. How many times can I do this? Right? Because you've asked all those questions and did everything. And then of course, to start getting those incremental changes, you want to split testable results. Right? A/B test. Don't get complicated. Most of you don't have enough traffic to do any type of multivariate test. Right? So we're only talking about comparing one thing against the other.
So what you would just maybe do it for a few weeks and, I mean, make...
It depends on the amount...
Change the...
Yes.
Okay, so you would run the test from your site for a couple of weeks and you know, do a conversion on it and then change a word or a picture or something?
Well, that's a great question. And so how do you know how long to run the test, right? There's two answers to that. One is how much traffic is coming to your site and how many conversions are you getting. Now, unless you want to go and get your math degree and figure out the equation that goes off of that, I just use a site. It's called Visual Website Optimizer. Okay? So that website is called Visual Website Optimizer. You can run a free account for 1,000 visitors over a month, and you'll be able to get some test results that you want. It's really, really simple to set up. It looks something like this. I type in the address of the page that I want to test. It brings it up in front of me. I look at what I want to change. I click on it, and another window pops up that says, what do you want to change about this? Oh, I want to add an image, I want to put some text in there, and I literally make the change right there. I go on to the next screen, and I copy and paste the code and put it on my website, and I'm done. It's that simple. It is the easiest A/B testing software that I've seen. Right? So if you have one thing,
Are you doing parallel or serial testing on that?
so serial testing, you want to explain that for everybody?
Serial means you do one after the other. Parallel means you do...
Going in tandem?
Yeah, sort of like a random number generator that brings one page up and then the other page.
So, and parallel is going to be more multivariate tests. You're going to do serial testing, which is the A/B testing on the street. Okay? After one test complete, you start another one. And the thing is, you don't have to do it on that page. You can do it on multiple pages of your site. So you can have multiple tests running on your site at the same time, depending on the amount of traffic that you get. But on that one page, you're only going to test 2 items at a time. Okay?
But no, what I'm talking about is you can have alternate versions of that to bring up, 2 good versions being at the same time frame.
Yeah, that's the A/B test. It's testing 2 different versions.
But running them at the same time or running them first one and then the other one.
No, you're running at the same time. So with the Visual Website Optimizer, what it does is it runs two versions of your website, okay, of that page at the same time, and it determines who sees what. So you don't say, oh, I want this person to see it, I want that person to see it. It's going to determine just randomly through the traffic that's coming to your website. You will determine what percentage of your traffic you want to send there. So if you want to send 100% of your traffic to the other page, you can do that. You can do a 50-50 split, which most people do. I tend, if I have a good converting page, I'll do like an 80-20 split. 80% going to the one that I know is going to be funny, 20% going to the test. So the test takes a little bit longer, but I'm not sending all my traffic there. So I'm not having a big dip in my revenue. Okay? So if there's only one takeaway here, and I don't know what time frame I have here, so I'll take
After you're done, we have time for a few questions.
Okay. So here's the one takeaway. If you forget everything else, remember this, right? If you know your customer better than your competition, you're going to win. So my challenge earlier of spending an hour a day and speaking with people that have just given you money and the people that have given you money and the people that told you no, spending an hour a day reaching out to those people will make you more money towards the end of the year because you'll understand your customer better than anybody else. And that will do more to increase your conversions because then you can take what you've learned and put it on your site, put it on your messaging and social media, and your sales process. It'll change everything. All right. So questions? You can reach out to me. There's my email, my website, micaljohnson.com, and my phone number. But any other questions while I'm up here?
Hold on a second.
I'm waiting for a microphone.
One question.
Yeah, it's just one question, and it's one. It really is one reference. There's a book called Anticipate. Know what your customer wants before they do. And then one of the authors is Jeff Toby, and it has like 3 different levels of following up on a customer, and some very good systems.
All right, thank you. I saw a couple other hands on the other side of the room.
What was that?
Hi, I represent a product. I own my own company. I'm an independent contractor.
Sure.
And I'm using a replicated site
Sure.
that the company has. Now, what options do I have for capturing information through a replicated site?
I would tell you to not use a replicated site to build your email list, right? So for those of you who have some type of either affiliate arrangement or some type of arrangement where somebody else is controlling the actual sale, then you need to get in the business of generating their leads and then sending the pre-qualified leads to that page. So remember when I talked about come out there and deciding what your sales funnel is, right? What progression you want them to go through. So that progression needs to lead them through a site that you control and that you can collect those leads and then do those follow-ups from there. And then you can send them to the other site that's going to make you the money. Hold on, we have one other person.
No, it's a follow-up, just to put the deal on that.
Got something in front of you. We'll get to you, Frank, I promise.
Okay, good.
I run a facility for women in recovery. It's an inpatient facility, so I'm from the service industry. Is there any just general knowledge about whether testimonials on a website, personal testimonials, are effective?
That is a great question, right? So that falls into the category of social proof. Are you more likely to pay attention to somebody that you know, or somebody that you can relate to, or just some random person, or some celebrity? The question is, every single one of them will increase your conversion. Most likely, though, if you use testimonials, the people that you're trying to attract are going to relate with them, and that's why they work so well. But what you want to do when it comes to the testimonials is you want to use the picture, if you can, use their picture, use their full name, and then the testimonial that is directly showing the result of your service, and then kind of take the best line and make it a headline out of it. So they see that, hey, that one thing that you're trying to get them to do is there, then they can read the little story that goes along with it and put the picture and the name in there. But it absolutely does. And I didn't include those types of results in here, but I've seen double-digit increase by adding testimonials to a sales page. Trying to do that.
Anybody else with a question?
Yeah. Thanks, Andre. You've been amazing. Thank you. I've learned a lot. This question has to do with opting in, and I've yet to do that on my page, but I'm about to, and I wondered how important it is to give some sort of a welcome or a gift if they opt in versus just saying you've been added to this page and you'll receive new newsletters monthly.
Okay, so that's a great question, right? So how do you get somebody to trade that information from you? So you're talking about doing a transaction where, hey, I want your email address and I'm going to send you X, right? So it just depends on the nature of the offer there. So a lot of people use the free reports. They'll use a video series or some type of ebook. Okay, but you got to look at the quality of the content that you're putting out there. Is it standalone, or did they just read your blog, right? So if they just read your blog and they said, hey, look, this is awesome stuff. Taking a word from the Joe back there, right? This is awesome. If they read your blog post and they say that, they should be able to take you should be able to get their email address at face value. Just tell them what they're getting. So going back to that test earlier, where it says the value of what you're getting, these are the things you talk about. Bullet point those out, and that should be enough. Now, if it's going to be something that you're standalone, sending out, running some advertising to, then you're going to have to give away like a free report. You're not going to get an opt-in to a blog just sending some random advertising to it, or targeted advertising, because you haven't built any value.
Okay.
Hopefully that answered your question. Did have one other thing.
Okay, a couple more questions, and then we'll
I got you, Frank.
End the session. Got a question?
More of a comment for the people who have those replicated pages, and I would check with the company that you're doing it for. They may not allow you to do something on your own.
That's a good point. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Mitch, and then have a couple comments.
I've been in the position where I use replicated pages, and where I just create my own splash page, and then I embed the replicated page in there. Then you know how many people are coming. You can do all the analytics and everything else. So they don't go directly to there, but your replicated page is inside your splash page.
I'll just make a comment on that also. Whoever you're working with has no business in knowing what you do and who you are. So if you have a blog or whatever, and you talk about your passion for something, talk about it. And then you can always point them to the replicated page.
Yeah, so I mean, a good example of that is actually in the insurance industry, right? That's a very, very heavily regulated industry. And if you're an insurance provider, chances are you have to have some type of securities license. You have to do some, there's a ton of things that you have to archive, any type of messaging. However, if you have a personal blog, right, that talks about your hobby,